Welcome to the Inspiring You show. And if we haven't met yet, I'm Henry. And my friends, this is the August 2026 energy forecast. And drumroll, please, the overall theme for this month is living reentry, returning to life without returning to who you were. So let that sink in for a moment. Yeah, it's a really interesting one this month. And I think sometimes as we are growing and transforming in various ways, or maybe we're going through a difficult time, we can think about the past and the person who we were in the past, wishing we were at that place. Yet the past, the past, and where we are in the present moment. And if we're going through growing pains, it may be something, beneficial for and something that you can't see yet, even if it's a difficult time. And so living reentry, returning to life without returning to who you were. It's a really powerful overall theme. And the embodiment key moving through this month is arc of living reentry from protective distance to present tense participation, which that is also a really interesting key. And we'll get more into it, but August is continuing inside the larger arc of structural residency, format year 2, inhabiting the original design of the soul and becoming legible to the field without adjusting tone. I will say I am live streaming this, and a note for the live stream listeners, or if you're going to be listening or watching this back in replay. So if you're listening to this public version of the podcast or on YouTube, or actually, I'm also doing this on TikTok, you may hear references to the crystalline Reiki dowsing energy session that follows this forecast. So, that full multidimensional recalibration is available exclusively for the Inspiring You All Access Patreon members. And if you are interested in joining, the link is in the bio area. If you're on TikTok or if you're on YouTube or my podcast, it will be in the show notes. All right. Before we get into the full forecast, let's just take a moment to arrive. Let's begin with a breath. So let yourself close your eyes, lower your gaze for just a second, and then take a nice inhale. Allow your body to arrive within the life that is happening now. And then exhale. Release the pressure to return to an early version of yourself. Take another breath. Allow interest, warmth, curiosity, and responsiveness to become noticeable. And then exhale. Release the need to turn every emerging feeling into an immediate decision. Okay, now inhale. Again, I allow myself to enter life as the person I am now. And then exhale. I honor the pacing, discernment, and body wisdom I carry with me. All right, take another deep breath. Let it out, my friends. Okay, let's begin. First, we're going to begin with a soul invitation from the guides. And so we're just going to take a moment right now, calling in the collective guiding slate team, as well as my oversoul Sahariel, soul aligned higher self Aurelia. And then if you wish to call in yours, you can as well for your highest good. And then we're calling crystalline Reiki as well. This whole talk is light encoded if you wish to receive. All right. So here is a message. We're starting with a soul invitation. Beloved humans, beloved human system, come closer to the life that is happening now. Come out of the inner rooms where you've been waiting for certainty, permission, repair, recognition, resolution, or the perfect internal state before allowing yourself to participate more fully. August does not ask you to become who you were before exhaustion, grief, disappointment, transition, prolonged responsibility, or necessary self protection changed you. It invites you to enter through the person who exists now with your changed body, with your changed understanding, with a stronger discernment, with a clear awareness of what costs too much, with a deeper appreciation for what feels warm, real, nourishing, interesting, and alive. Let sensation become more noticeable without demanding that it explain itself. Let interest become recognizable without immediately turning it into a commitment. Let curiosity have a room without requiring a productive outcome. Let laughter, movement, appetite, touch, creativity, beauty, preference, affection, rest, and human connection become available in the forms your present body can receive. You're not being returned to an earlier version of life. Life is meeting the person you have become. So that's the end of the message. So let's just take a moment to take a nice deep breath as the words are processing and moving through us. So many of those actually really resonate with me, especially with your changed body. And I am in menopause, and definitely I understand that one. um, and yeah, I think this one's, that every energy forecast to me are powerful in different ways, but this one really is resonating already. So let's kind of move more into it, understanding the movement of August. So before we move into the overall, more so the overall, and just then into the five themes, it's really important to understand what August is actually doing. So July focused on structural coherence. It asked what had become clear enough, sound enough, and truthful enough to begin receiving form. So July supported steadiness, cleaner reciprocity, more accurate fit, purposeful pathways, and the recognition of vitality as part of coherence. Coherence has been a big buzzword for us and inspiring you for the last year. So August does not abandon that work. August reveals what these strengthening structures are now able to hold, because a coherent life is not built only to contain responsibility, alignment, work, boundaries, organization, healing, or spiritual understanding. It is built so that a living person can inhabit it. A person with temperament, humor, preference, curiosity, sensory awareness, affection, creativity, movement, play, appetite, rest, spontaneity, and the capacity to be surprised. And so then August widens the experience of structural residency. It asks, now that more of the structure has clarified, how much of your actual life force can it inhabit? Can you be present inside the life you've been creating? So here are some reflection questions. So if you're in the Inspiring You All Access, I will have the entire transcript for you available at some point this month. If you are just listening, feel free to jot down the questions. Here they are. So we already said one. Can you be present inside the life you've been creating? The next one, can you experience what is happening without continually standing one step outside of it? To me, that is a very powerful question. Whew. Can you experience what's happening without continually standing one step outside of it? Can you let something Feel supportive without immediately monitoring how long it will last. Yeah, that's another one. Can you recognize interest without demanding that it become a permanent direction? Can you participate without abandoning pacing? Can you move closer without overriding discernment? Can grief, caution, wisdom, and aliveness exist within the same human system? So, that, my friends, is living reentry. So that's the overall theme, which the overall theme is living reentry, returning to life without returning to who you were. Who it is this one has had me already journaling. I know it's August 2nd when I'm doing this, and it has just been so already powerful in so many ways. So I'm really interested in hearing what all of you think as well. And if you are in my Patreon group, please message or leave a comment on this when I put it up. All right, so that is living reentry, and it's not a dramatic rebirth. It's not a demand to begin again. It's not an announcement that you have not been living. You may have continued working, caring, creating, supporting, deciding, organizing, producing, tending, and responding to everything that required your attention. Yet prolonged stress, grief, uncertainty, caregiving, disappointment, illness, or over responsibility, or even over efforting, or maybe you've been in balance with giving and receiving, you've been over giving, maybe you've been in the non beneficial survival mode, or repeated demand on you can create another form of distance. The human system remains functional while reducing contact. It may reduce sensory contact. It may reduce emotional range. It may reduce relational availability. It may reduce creative freedom. It may reduce all these aspects. It may reduce spontaneous movement. It may reduce curiosity. It may reduce pleasure. It may reduce preference, or it may reduce willingness to approach an experience that is not already familiar. And so, this is why, in doing self realization work, or whatever you want to call it, consciousness work, awareness work, you start to really see what's really happening, or mindfulness work, however you are calling it. Because the body is supporting you and the human's supporting you in various ways, but there might be an aspect of you that might be shut down, might be in fight, flight, freeze. There may be an aspect where, it's been beneficial for you not to see something yet, but then all of a sudden it clears up to allow you to see. So you are still living, but one part of the system may remain slightly outside the experience. So you may be having emotional range, relational availability, creative freedom, spontaneous movement, curiosity, pleasure, preference, or willingness to approach an experience that's not already familiar. But one part of the system may remain outside the experience. It's like one foot in, one foot out. You may be, watching, anticipating, calculating, conserving, tracking, protecting, preparing, waiting for the next requirement. In August begins reducing that distance. So what happens is that you could be having an experience, but you could be putting a distance. It might have been a protective distance at one point and may now become non-beneficial protective distance, even if you're in the experience. So August then begins reducing that distance. not through force, not by demanding vulnerability, not by declaring that all protection is unnecessary. August supports the human system in recognizing where willingness is already returning, where the body is becoming more available to encounter experience, where attention can remain in the present for longer, where communication can become, more immediate, where creativity can move before it is assigned a purpose, where the physical world can feel more inhabitable. This is not expansion through pressure, it's the return of range. A wider emotional range, a wider sensory range, a wider relational range, a wider creativity range, a wider capacity to experience rest, humor, pleasure, movement, affection, preference, beauty, and meaningful contact without needing to justify them. So, the cornerstone of this month is it is the willingness to move toward experience. It is the willingness to move toward experience. There's someone on social media that was I just saw a video of her yesterday talking about how she's going to have a yes month. And she invited, people who are in her community to also have a yes month. And when I listened to it, I was grinning because I'm like, that's the August energy forecast. I mean, it is so to it. And she already talked about doing one thing that she would have normally said no to, but she said yes. And then she ended up having this whole incredible day in different ways. And so she invited people to have a yes month. And so this is what August is. It is the willingness to move toward experience, doing things that you may felt, oh, I'm too shy to do that. And yet you're like, you know what? I'm going to try it. And that's something that I saw that she did. She never tried karaoke, and she went up there and sang a song, and she just looked like she was in so much joy singing and doing karaoke. And so, many things can be true. You can feel like you're shy. You can feel nervous. You can feel scared. Oh God, what's going to be like? And then you get up there and you're like, wow, this is fun. So it's the willingness to move toward experience. And that willingness may begin very quietly. You notice something. Maybe you notice like, I say no a lot to different experiences, and I just kind of keep myself hidden or small. So you may notice something. You may feel a slight inclination to move closer. You may become curious. You may want to change something, or maybe taste something you've never tried before, learn something, call someone, go to karaoke, go somewhere, make something, rest differently, or allow more of yourself to participate in various ways. Or it could be in a conversation, participate in a conversation. The first movement is not necessarily action. The first movement is recognition. Something within you is becoming more responsive. August does not ask you to follow every impulse. It does not frame every craving, attraction, invitation, or idea as soul guidance. Living reentry includes discernment. It includes pacing, boundaries, it includes practical consideration, it includes respect for your body and for the other people involved. Moving toward life does not mean moving toward everything. It means becoming available enough to recognize what is actually present. Some interests may offer a brief moment of enjoyment. Some may restore a quieter part of you. Some may reveal a need for change. Some may simply show you that your range of participation is widening. Not every interest needs to become an identity. Not every preference needs to become a project. Not every creative impulse needs to become work. Not every conversation needs to determine the future of a relationship. Not every experience needs to prove its long term value before it is allowed to exist. And this is part of the August movement. The human system may begin encountering life without requiring every moment to carry the full weight of the future. Okay, let's get more into the overall theme living reentry, returning to life without returning to who you were. August carries the movement, as we mentioned, the movement of living reentry. Living reentry is the gradual widening of participation after a period in which the human system may have needed to reduce its contact with certain parts of life. This reduction may have occurred through grief, prolonged responsibility, physical illness, emotional exhaustion, caregiving, disappointment, uncertainty, survival stress, could be grief stress, major transition, or the cumulative effect of carrying too much for too long. You may not have stopped living per se. You may have continued working, caring, creating, supporting, making decisions, tending to your body, maintaining relationships, meeting the practical requirements of daily life. Yet participation and presence, my friends, are not always the same. So I'm going to repeat that. Particip- Participation and presence are not always the same. A person can continue functioning while parts of the human system remain at a distance from the experience itself. The body may complete the day while anticipating the next demand. The mind may remain several steps ahead of the present. The emotional field may reduce its range because feeling more would seem like having to carry more. I thought that was really interesting when the guides brought that through. I've never really thought about it in that way because I'm an intuitive empath. And so my relationship with emotions is extremely strong. And I've always been curious about various aspects of the emotional field. And I thought that was really interesting, which in the Inspiring You Patreon, we're definitely the Meditate with Me and the All Access. We're definitely going to have to talk more about that. All right, the creative field may become quieter because every idea appears to contain another responsibility. Because if you're feeling exhausted, burnout, or just in that over responsibility, one more thing on the to do list may just send you over the edge. So the creative field may become quieter because every idea appears to contain another responsibility. The relational field may remain careful, edited, or highly managed. The sensory field may notice what is difficult while receiving less information from beauty, warmth, nourishment, movement, pleasure, and a physical comfort. So I thought that was really interesting too, how a person can continue functioning while parts of the human system remain at a distance from the experience itself. And so the sensory field, that's like may notice what is difficult while receiving less information from beauty, warmth, nourishment, movement, pleasure, physical comfort. So even if you're outside in nature and you're watching the most beautiful sunset and you're just in awe of all the colors, someone next to you, they may be shut down. They may be in a situation where they've been functioning while parts of their human system remain at a distance from the experience itself. And so you could be seeing these colors vividly, and they may just be just numb to the experience. They may be not, the colors may be dull to them, or it just is like morphing in one and they can't even note the nuance of the different aspects of the beauty. It just gives me so much it just makes me have so much more compassion, even more so for humaning. Because in so many ways, we can just be so disconnected from ourselves. So, but this month, though, living reentry begins when this distance is no longer required in quite the same way. Because it could have been a beneficial aspect of why the distance was there. It might have been a beneficial protective aspect. So, again, living reentry begins when this distance no longer requires in quite the same way. It may begin as a renewed interest in something, a fuller response to music, a desire to move the body, a preference becoming clearer, a moment of laughter that arrives without effort, a willingness to speak more directly, a need to change something within your surroundings, a creative idea that appears without immediate purpose, a greater awareness of taste, texture, color, temperature, touch, nature, or physical space. These movements may appear small, but they are not insignificant. They may show that more of the human system is becoming available to experience life it is already living. August is not asking you to become who you were before the period of distance began. It's not asking you to recover an earlier body, an earlier capacity, an earlier pace, an earlier identity, or an earlier form of participation. The person entering life now may have different boundaries, different needs, different timing, different preferences, different energy, different relationships with work, responsibility, creativity, pleasure, connection, and rest. So living reentry honors these changes. It does not say go back. It says enter from here. Enter with what you know now. Enter with the discernment you developed. Enter with the body you presently inhabit. Enter through the pacing that allows you to remain connected to yourself. And so with that, then the you're entering is the enter. Yeah. So you enter through pacing that allows you to remain connected to yourself. Enter without requiring every part of life to become available at once. And so that's also an important note to discern. You enter without requiring every part of your life to become available at once. Because I think sometimes in our humaning, we are just wanting to like have it all once. Let me have it all at once. And it may not be really beneficial for us. So that's what that means. So this is why August is not an expansion through force. It is the gradual return of range, more emotional range, more relational range, more creative range, more sensory range, more capacity for preference, humor, curiosity, affection, movement, beauty, rest, pleasure, spontaneity, and meaningful contact. More like experience range, if you will. So this does not mean though, if you're going through a difficult time, it doesn't mean that the grief disappears. It doesn't mean that uncertainty has ended. It doesn't mean that the nervous system will immediately trust every form of participation. Because remember, your nervous system may be used to a certain way of life. And so that's why you have to work with your nervous system. You have to really discern between, is your nervous system feeling nervous because it's a really beneficial nervous in terms of giving you information, or is it nervous because you've never done something before and it's something new? And so you have to discern that and work with your human. So living reentry allows difficulty and aliveness to exist within the same human system. You may still need to rest while becoming more curious. You may still feel grief while responding to beauty. You may still have limited capacity while wanting more contact with life. You may still require strong boundaries while becoming more relationally present. You may still be healing while recognizing that today contains something you're able to experience. So, August does not require the human system to choose between protection and participation. It supports a new relationship between them. And protection can become more discerning, and participation can become more paced. And yes, boundaries can remain intact, choice can remain available. The body can move closer without being forced to remain. Curiosity can arise without becoming commitment. Interest can be acknowledged without becoming obligation. A creative impulse can move without becoming work. A conversation can matter without determining the entire future of a relationship. A pleasurable experience can be received without needing to prove that everything is now resolved. So, the central movement of living reentry is, once again, the willingness to move toward experience. And this willingness may be physical, emotional, relational, creative, practical, or sensory. It may appear as a strong movement. More often, it may begin as a subtle inclination. Something feels possible, maybe like an opening on something. Something creates warmth. Something brings your attention closer. Something awakens genuine curiosity. Something helps you feel more present within yourself. The first movement is recognition. Action may come later. August does not ask you to act upon every impulse or interpret every attraction as guidance. Moving toward life does not mean moving toward everything. Discernment remains essential. Pacing remains essential. Boundaries remain essential. Respect for the body and for other people involved remain essential. Living reentry is not impulsive participation, it is increasingly conscious participation. So the question is not only what do I want to move toward? The question is also what happens within my human system when I move closer? Do I become more present, more grounded, more connected to myself? Does the experience create warmth without urgency? Does curiosity remain spacious? Can I approach without abandoning my boundaries? Can I participate without exceeding my actual capacity? That's one I've definitely worked on over the years, especially when I worked in television. I definitely exceeded capacity a lot. And then another question is, can I remain free to pause, change direction, or decide that the experience is not for me? And that one can be challenging because with that question, there can come up like even though you're complete with something, there can be sadness and grief. There can be even anger, where you feel like maybe you invested a lot of time in something and it didn't work out. So let yourself be kind to yourself and process the humans. And if you need any support, reach out to a practitioner to support you. So August strengthens this kind of participation, not the participation that overrides, the participation that includes you. Living reentry means that life is no longer encountered only through responsibility, management, anticipation, healing work, or the completion of what must be done. More of the living person becomes available. The person with humor, preference, texture, affection, curiosity, creativity, movement, sensory awareness, play, spontaneous expression, the capacity to receive something because it is nourishing, interesting, beautiful, or alive. And this is not separate from structural residency. It is what structural residency was making room to hold. The structures strengthened through previous months are not meant to become another set of responsibilities. They are meant to support a fuller inhabitation of life. August asks you, can you become more coherent now? August asks you, what has become more coherent now hold more of the person who lives within it? Can your schedule hold your actual body? Can your relationships hold more of your light truth? Can your home reflect the person who lives there now? Can your work hold creativity without consuming every creative movement? Can the present moment hold more than preparation for what may happen next? Can your life include the person you've become? This is the deeper movement of living reentry. You're not being returned to the past. You're not being measured against your former capacity. You're not being asked to recreate what was. You're being invited to become more available inside what is here. Okay, so here's an overall theme example, returning to life through a changed pace. So let's say you've been moving through a prolonged period of, over responsibility or maybe even grief or health concerns or family demands or emotional exhaustion, mental exhaustion, and you've continued doing what needed to be done. You've kept appointments, you've answered messages, you've completed work, you've cared for other people, you've managed practical decisions. From the outside, it may appear that you have remained fully engaged with life. But then one morning, you notice something different. You hear a song and want to listen rather than immediately move to the next task. You look around your home and realize you want more light in the room. You consider calling someone you enjoy speaking with. You feel curious about taking a class, visiting a different place, changing your clothing, cooking something unfamiliar, or returning to an activity that has not always held your attention for a long time. None of these movements may seem dramatic. You may not suddenly feel ready for a full schedule, a major commitment, or a complete reinvention. You may still need substantial rest. You may still be grieving. You may still have limited capacity. Living reentry is not the announcement that everything difficult has ended. It is the recognition that more of you is becoming available inside the life that continues alongside it. You might listen to the song, open the curtains, send one message, prepare one nourishing meal, spend 20 minutes exploring the class without registering. The movement is not, I must now return to everything I used to do. The movement is, I can allow this moment of interest to exist. I can enter one part of the day. I can let life meet me at the pace I can sustain. And that is living reentry. The person entering is not the person who existed before. The person entering is not the person who existed before the difficult period. The person entering carries new limits, new wisdom, changed priorities, clearer discernment, and a deeper understanding of what participation must now include. August does not ask this person to recover an old life. It supports the present person in becoming more available within the life that is here. Whew. I just think this month's forecast overall theme is so, so powerful. And then let me just talk about the embodiment key. The embodiment key is arc of living reentry from protective distance to present tense participation. The embodiment movement of August is not about holding more, it's about inhabiting more. The body may have learned to remain capable while reducing contact with the experience itself. This can happen when too much has required attention at once. You handle the appointment, you answer the message, you completed the work, you cared for the person, you solved the problem, you managed the transition, you keep moving. But your awareness remains slightly ahead of your body or even outside the moment or focused on what will be required next. So August begins restoring contact without overwhelming the system, which is so important. Because remember, your system is used to a certain way, which is why we don't want to overwhelm the system as new ways of being are being brought in. That's why it might be small. So you might notice this through changes that, like I said, initially appear small. Food tastes different, music reaches you more differently, more deeply. A room feels too dim, crowded, or no longer reflective of you. So you want to move furniture, bring some light in. You wear something different, change the route you take, cook something unfamiliar, spend time near water, maybe walk further, maybe call someone, maybe speak more directly, laugh more freely, create without knowing what the result will become. These movements are not trivial. They may include the life force is becoming more available to experience. The body is learning that participation does not require the loss of protection, discernment, pacing, boundaries, or choice. You don't have to abandon the wisdom gained during periods of necessary distance. You're learning where wisdom no longer requires withdrawal. You're learning that pacing and participation can coexist. You can move toward experience slowly. You can pause. You can reconsider. You can remain curious without making a promise. You can enter the present without surrendering your ability to leave what does not feel right. You can experience warmth without insisting that warmth answer every question. August restores participation as a living relationship rather than an all or nothing decision. So then with that then we're going to move into the for arc context, just for the arc context. August remains within the arc of structural residency, format year 2, and format year means light format if you're new to us. Inhabiting the original design of the soul, becoming legible to the field without adjusting tone. So August brings another dimension of this inhabitation forward. The original design of the soul was never intended to be experienced solely through structure, purpose, alignment, responsibility, spiritual understanding, or meaningful contribution. It also includes the distinct qualities of the living person: temperament, humor, preference, affection, texture, movement, creativity, curiosity, sensual awareness, play, rest, spontaneous expression, the capacity to enjoy what does not need to become useful. The soul does not become more present only through solemn realization. Sometimes the soul becomes unmistakable through what makes you laugh, what awakens your interest, what you suddenly want to wear, what tastes satisfying, what you want to change in your house, what you're no longer willing to tolerate, where you want to go, what you want to make, and who allows your full humanity to remain present in the same room. You've been strengthening the capacity to inhabit your original design for months. August brings more range, personality, sensory contact, and human participation into the structure that has already been forming. More of the living person becomes available within structural residency. And then the 5 themes of August that we're going to be moving into reveal different doorways of living reentry. They do not form a ladder that must be completed in order. Several may occur at once. They may repeat throughout the month. One may become more visible while the other is quietly reorganizing beneath it. Each theme sits inside, though, the overall movement, returning to life without returning to who you were. And in regard to then the overall theme, living reentry. So with that though, also, even though I'm saying this is the August energy forecast, you could experience this months from now. And, you also could be experiencing August, April's energy forecast. It doesn't really work linear in per se. We're multidimensional. So whatever you're being called to or you need, you will receive in various ways. And then if you work with them, obviously, you'll have, you'll be able to clear a lot more and shift, which then will bring you probably more into some of the energy forecasts as well. All right, let's move into theme number 1. Renewed openness to experience, becoming more willing to move toward life. So the harmonic function arc for this is life force recall. So, August may begin through a renewed openness to experience. This may involve food, movement, creativity, relationship, work, travel, learning, beauty, restorative pleasure, touch, solitude, conversation, nature, or simply experiencing something beyond what has become familiar. Openness to experience is broader than immediate wanting, craving, attraction, or acting upon every impulse. So I'm going to repeat that. Openness to experience is broader. And also, there's a discernment than immediate wanting, craving, attraction, or acting upon every impulse. Openness to experience is the willingness to move toward experience. Openness to experience. It is about becoming more available to approach what feels enlivening, nourishing, meaningful, interesting, or quietly compelling after a period of caution, repetition, grief, stress, over responsibility, or maybe there was protective distance. The body may register this willingness. It may also appear through curiosity, emotional availability, creative interest, relational presence, practical participation, or a greater capacity to encounter life without controlling every possible outcome first. During prolonged periods of stress, the human system may continue functioning while becoming increasingly selective about what it is willing to approach. An unfamiliar experience may be interpreted as another demand. Interest may be noticed and quickly dismissed. Curiosity may arise but remain unexplored. Something potentially supportive may still feel too vulnerable, complicated, unfamiliar, or energetically costly to enter. August begins loosening this protective hesitation. This does not this does not mean discernment disappears. It does not mean every impulse should be followed. It does not mean abandoning practical awareness or consuming whatever temporarily creates stimulation. Renewed openness does not require overextension. It does not require approaching people who have not demonstrated respect. It does not require choices that disregard the body, health, finances, commitments, or the well-being of others. So, the first movement, and here are some reflective questions. So, the first movement is recognition. What creates warmth within the field? And this is your individual field. What awakens genuine curiosity? What creates subtle forward movement rather than urgency or fixation? What brings more of you into the present? What experience feels possible now that may not have felt available before? So, some interests will be temporary. Some will offer a brief moment of enjoyment, learning, or renewal. Others may reveal parts of you that remained quieter beneath responsibility, grief, fatigue, familiarity, or prolonged self protection. Not every interest needs to become a commitment. Not every inclination requires immediate action. Something may simply be showing you that your range of participation is widening and that more of life is available to encounter. So, August asks you to recognize when willingness is returning and then allow discernment to guide the form, timing, depth, and pace of your participation. So, how this may look in the individual field, you may notice more responsiveness in the body, renewed curiosity, changing preferences, fuller sensory awareness, or a quiet inclination to approach something beyond your established routines. In the external field, there may be invitations, ideas, people, environments, learning opportunities, travel possibilities, creative directions, or simple experiences may appear in forms that feel more approachable than they once did. Like I gave that example in the beginning of the social media creator who was talking about how they're having a yes month, and previously they always shied away from doing karaoke, and an opportunity presented in the external field of, hey, want to do karaoke? And she said yes. And so that's an example of your the internal field and the external field in terms of sharing the communication and working. All right, so insight translation on all of this. Interest is information before it is instruction. Recognition comes first. Discernment determines the form, timing, depth, and pace of participation. Just because it comes in doesn't mean you have to say yes to it. And then here's a reality check on all of it. You may become interested in something that does not fit your previous self concept. An enlivening experience does not have to become a permanent direction. Rest may restore responsiveness more effectively than further analysis. A small preference may contain useful information without requiring immediate action. Irritation may reveal where life has become overly repetitive, constricted, or removed from genuine engagement. Genuine openness tends to increase presence and self connection rather than urgency, compulsion, fixation, or depletion. Something may be worth exploring while still requiring boundaries and practical consideration. The willingness to approach experience may initially feel vulnerable rather than joyful. Moving toward life does not mean moving toward everything. Pacing allows willingness to remain sustainable. So here's an example for theme 1. And just to remind you, in regard to theme 1, theme 1 is renewed openness to experience, becoming more willing to move toward life. So that's the name of theme 1. So here's the example. So let's say you notice that you keep looking at information about pottery classes and you've never thought of yourself as an artist in that particular way. You don't know whether you'd be good at it. You don't know whether you'd want to continue beyond one class, but part of you immediately begins evaluating, would this become another obligation? Do I have the energy? Would I need to buy supplies? Would I have to make this into something useful? Would I be wasting money if I did not continue? The older pattern may dismiss the interest before you have even experienced it. But renewed openness to experience asks you to pause before either suppressing the interest or turning it into a commitment. So you might read about the class, look at the schedule, notice what your body does when you imagine attending. You may realize that the interest creates warmth, curiosity, a sense of movement without creating urgency. So you choose a single intro session. You don't buy an entire set of tools. You don't announce a new identity. You don't decide that the pottery must become your next project. You simply let yourself have the experience. You may love it. You may decide once was enough. You may return months later. The value of the experience is not measured only by whether it becomes permanent. The willingness to approach it has already shown that more of life is becoming available. This is the difference between renewed openness and compulsion. Compulsion says, I need to act now and this must become something. Renewed openness says, I'm interested. I can approach this at a pace that allows me to remain present. I can receive this experience without demanding that it determine my future. Okay, so here's more reflection questions for this theme. What is becoming more interesting to me? What brings more warmth, responsiveness, or color into my field? Where have I suppressed interest because I feared it would become an obligation? What experience feels possible now? What is the difference between genuine curiosity and compulsive urgency in my body? How could I explore something without demanding a permanent outcome? What pace would allow more of me to remain present? So take some time to reflect on those questions, do some journaling, meditate with them. And then here's how the theme supports the overall theme in terms of living reentry. Living reentry begins when the human system becomes willing to encounter experience again, not recklessly, not indiscriminately, with discernment, with pacing, and with the right to pause. Theme one restores willingness as information. It allows life force to become noticeable before the mind turns it into pressure. So let the subtle movement toward life become visible. Let interest exist before commitment. Let curiosity become available in a form that the present body can sustain. And then the takeaway is let the willingness to move toward experience become information again, then allow discernment to guide how, when, and whether you participate. So then that brings us to theme two. But let me just take a sip of water. All right, my friends, let's do theme two now. All right, theme two. I just want to say too, as people are in the live stream coming and going, I definitely can feel that too. So even though I'm on Restream, I'm not actually on, which is then is live streaming into YouTube and TikTok. I can feel different aspects coming and going. And so there's been moments when if I'm pausing, I'm asking the guides to, you know, clear. I'm asking, use Reiki and things like that. So because this is light encoded, again, if you wish to receive, all you need to do is say, yes, I want to receive for my highest good. And there has been just, a few people that have been coming and going in their throat chakras, I could feel were really just drained and low. And so I did ask the guides if it was beneficial for Reiki to be sent. And again, respecting free will for the person if they wish to receive it. So if that is you, you can just say, yes, I'd like to receive Reiki for my highest good. And then you'll receive it. And again, it's always working with your guides as well. Okay, theme two. Present tense life, the body stopped living ahead of the moment. So the harmonic function for this is temporal return. August may reveal how frequently the human system has been living ahead of itself. So it's preparing for the next problem, anticipating another request, rehearsing a future conversation, tracking what remains incomplete, waiting for the project, healing process, family situation, financial concern, health issue, grief period, or uncertain chapter to resolve before allowing the present to feel real. And so then the body may be sitting in one moment while attention is already living in another. And August begins returning attention from the imagined next moment into the one that is already occurring. And this movement may be subtle. You may become aware of the room. You may notice your pace. You stop rushing through an experience that does not need to be rushed. You realize that a difficult event has already passed, even though your body continues preparing for its return. You notice that today is not asking for the same response yesterday required. Present tense life is not denial of the future. It's not ignoring responsibilities. It's not pretending unresolved situations no longer matter. It's restoring contact with what is actually here. Some parts of life are available before the whole picture is settled. Nourishment can be received while a question remains unanswered. I think that sometimes can be hard for us in the humaning that you can still receive nourishment while a question remains unanswered. Um, And that's why the present tense, living in the present tense, this present tense life. Rest can happen before the entire list is completed. Creativity can move while grief remains present. A meaningful day does not require a perfectly organized life. Yes. So this one is interesting. One thing the guides talked about in the last year with me is in terms of tracking, you could be tracking what remains incomplete, but you also could just be tracking in terms of what's around you. And it may be for a lot of reasons. And last summer, I did talk about this a lot in my Inspiring You Patreon group. Last summer, I was releasing from just non-beneficial aspects of tracking, where even when I was sleeping, I was still highly aware. And part of it is just, your multidimensional aspects and your abilities. And so, but it wasn't allowing me to fully rest in some ways, even though I'd look at my aura ring and be like, oh, look, I did get enough deep sleep and rest, yet I don't feel quite as rested. What is happening here? And one of it is because I was still engaged in just being aware and tracking in various ways. And so some of these things you have to look at your multidimensional relationship in terms of your human in your world and your abilities. And that could be however your intuitive, psychic, or any of the clairs, however that looks for you and how you have developed it. It might have been really beneficial in the ways you've developed it, but there could be some habits that are now complete and ready to be let go of, so that way you can progress in terms of this new aspect of present tense life. The body stopped living ahead of the moment. So check out that as well, and just see if there's anything that possibly is complete or is now no longer beneficial and being called to clear and shift. All right, so for this one then, theme 2, present tense life, the body stops living ahead of the moment. For the individual field, the body may become more aware of its actual surroundings, pace, sensations, capacity, and needs rather than responding only to anticipated future requirements. And then for the external field, situations may slow down, change, resolve, or become less urgent before the nervous system fully recognizes that the conditions are different. And then the insight translation for this one is: the present does not need to be perfect to become inhabitable. Life is not located only after the unresolved parts are finished. And then here's a reality check for this theme. The body may continue preparing for an event that it's already passed. A calmer day may feel unfamiliar before it feels supportive. You may answer a present situation with an older response. Slowing down may reveal how much urgency was generated internally rather than required externally. The current moment may contain more support than anticipation allows you to notice. You can prepare for the future without emotionally living there all day. Pacing may become easier once attention returns to the actual requirement of the moment. A period of peace does not require to be used exclusively to prepare for another crisis. Presence may initially expose fatigue that anticipation had been overriding. So, presence may initially expose fatigue that anticipation had been overriding. The life available today still matters, even when tomorrow contains uncertainty. So, this then, in terms of the theme for theme 2, I'm just going to ask that Reiki sent. I can feel somebody who came on their crown chakra, and it feels like they have a headache too. It feels like their crown chakra is blocked, the top of their head, and then it feels with that there's a slight headache. So I'm just going to ask Reiki is sent. Okay. And again, if you wish to receive, you can just say, yes, I'd like to receive for the highest good. And it also, then your guides work with you too on that. So for the example for theme two, this is again, just to remind you of the theme name, present tense life. The body stops living ahead of the moment. Talk about multidimensional present tense life when I'm doing this talk and also feeling aspects in the external field too. All right, so theme number two, the example. When a quiet afternoon is actually quiet. So let's say you've been dealing with a prolonged family situation for months. Your phone has brought updates, requests, changing plans, and decisions that required immediate attention. Even on days when no message arrived, your body remained prepared. You checked the phone repeatedly. You kept the afternoon open in case someone needed you. You avoided becoming immersed in anything because you might have to stop. Then the situation changes. There is more support. The immediate decisions have been made. No one is asking you to do anything today, yet your body still behaves as though the next request could arrive at any moment. You sit down to read but can't concentrate. You begin cleaning because stillness feels uncomfortable. You check the phone even though there have been no notifications. Present tense life does not demand that you instantly relax. It begins with the current information. You look around the room, you feel your feet, you notice the phone is silent, and you remind the body nothing is being requested in this moment. I do not need to use this quiet exclusively to prepare. And with that, then you might go and take some time, maybe go for a walk. Maybe you're reading a book, you read a couple pages, or maybe you make coffee or tea, or maybe you sit outside for 10 minutes. And you may notice fatigue once you stop mobilizing. The fatigue is not evidence that presence has failed. It may be the first information the body has been able to communicate after a long period of preparation. The nervous system gradually learns. And so for then, if you are then taking time to go sit outside for 10 minutes, your nervous system then can gradually learn this afternoon is not a waiting room. It is part of my life. Tomorrow may still contain uncertainty, but today does not need to be sacrificed entirely to tomorrow. So I think that's a really powerful example. And one of the takeaways really that your day is not a waiting room. It's part of your life. And I definitely, when that came through, I took some time to ponder it and just looking back at my own life. And I've definitely had a lot of days where I've been in a waiting room. And meanwhile, this is part of your life. You're living. Humaning is so incredibly complicated. All right, here's some reflection questions. Where is my attention spending most of its time? What future situation is my body repeatedly rehearsing? Has something already changed that my nervous system has not yet registered? What does this moment actually require? Where am I rushing when the situation itself is not asking me to rush? What part of my life have I postponed until everything feels resolved? What is available now? So take some time with this one. And I will say too, like in regard to it's not as like black and white. There's a whole gray area on this. And part of it, when I talked about the whole multidimensional aspects, you know, there is, there is, it's not always, it can be really complicated. Um, and so this theme too, present tense life, the body stops living ahead of the moment. And, there was an experience I had the other day. I was out somewhere and I had brought my computer just to, do some work. And I was out in this open area and I really love sitting in this place. And it just feels so grounding and peaceful. And there's a person that came into the space and to go see someone, and their energy was so incredibly frenetic and so much anxiety, and they were speaking so incredibly fast. My nervous system, I was like, "Zzz, it feels like that." And part of it is I'm an intuitive empath. In terms of my abilities. And so I immediately, trying to stay focused on what I'm doing in my present tense life. And yet I could feel I was drifting. And so because of that, I was like, okay, I need to take a moment, turn on Reiki, ask the guys for more support, and also pack up my things. And I needed to move to another area where I had some buffering from just the energy that that person was, inputting into the external field. And so once I did these, and I also had to put on headphones too, and listen to just some music that would support all of that. And so I did various aspects to support it. And once I did, then I was able to live in this present tense, this present tense life. And my body then was stopping. My body was no longer living ahead of the moment, because I could tell I was tracking and I wasn't staying focused, because one ear was going towards that direction of where that person was. And I was noting the energy that was coming into the external field. And so I share this because humaning is so amazing in so many ways. And also, it can be very complicated and complex depending on also your multidimensional abilities. And so that's why there's a whole gray area on this. And with that, it's like how you then interpret and use, and these themes are being used in your life. Be open to receiving them. We're not just talking about one linear direction on these. You're multidimensional. And so these themes are multidimensional. And how much information they're going to give to you, though, is depending your willingness of openness, and also your ability to be open to connect the story dots. And so when I had this experience yesterday, I was like, oh, this is definitely the August energy forecast too, where I'm drifting and not staying as present. And then as soon as I recognized it, I was like, okay, what is it that my body needs? What do I need to do for my human? And I was then able to move to another area, which then allowed me to have the present tense life. So it's complicated, but also once you start working with the energy forecast and the themes, they start supporting you in so many ways. They just give you the information of like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. And I I have a choice. I can be supported in this. I don't have to be a victim to the external field. I don't have to be a victim, you know, to somebody who is, it seemed that this person just doesn't have tools in terms of how to manage nervous system dysregulation, how to actually work with anxiety, how to actually work with in terms of mindfulness, because of just the current that they came in on. And so I can have compassion for that person. And also, I can take care of myself within the situation too. So let yourself work with the themes and be curious of how they're showing up in your life. Like for me, when I do spot one, I'm like, oh, it just becomes really exciting as well. All right. So how this theme number 2 that we're talking about, present tense life, the body stops living ahead of the moment, how this actually connects to the overall theme, living reentry. So you can't fully enter life while attention is continually living ahead of the body. And so theme 2 restores temporal contact. And so that's part of what was happening to me yesterday was when I was in this place, once I noticed what was happening, it's not even notice, I could feel the energy and the frequencies. My attention then was moving towards that. And so then once I shifted myself out of it, it restores temporal contact. So it helps the human system recognize that preparation and presence are not the same thing. You can plan without abandoning today. You can remain aware of uncertainty without making uncertainty the only reality receiving your attention. Let the body receive evidence from the current moment. Let pacing respond to what is actually occurring. Let the present begin feeling like somewhere you can live again. So the takeaway is your life is not only located after the unresolved parts are finished. So that's a big one in terms of let the present begin feeling like somewhere you can live again. And if you are somebody who has you've been working with your abilities and you are sensitive at times to just various energies and frequencies and aware of it, it can be really challenging because because you're feeling the level of sometimes how anxiety can feel just painful or hurtful, you're you're not going to be able to resolve it for someone else. And so that's why the takeaway, your life is not located only after the unresolved parts are finished. You're not going to be able to resolve it for someone else. What you learn is, oh, I have an individual field, that's the external field, and that person's individual field is also connecting now in terms of my individual field in this external field. And within that, what do I need to do to support myself? And, in terms of boundaries, using tools, and that's what I did. And once I did that, I was then, my body was in the present in terms of able to focus on what I had gone there to do. So be kind to yourself because it can be very confusing at times. And also, it can be also really interesting. But if you keep using the tools and asking for support, you'll be surprised at how much things will start to really make sense in a whole nother way. All right, theme 3, unedited contact, relationship becomes more immediate and human. So this is the harmonic function arc, relational presence. August alters the way contact occurs. So there may be less tolerance for overly managed communication, prolonged interpretation, emotional guessing, ceremonial politeness, or relationships in which people interact primarily through edited versions of themselves. Doesn't mean that you're not going to use mindful communication skills. You still can, but there may be less tolerance for overly managed communication, et cetera, et cetera. This month favors direct human presence, a real conversation, a spontaneous invitation, an honest admission, a simple statement, a moment of humor that dissolves unnecessary distance, a willingness to say, this is where I am, without turning the statement into an argument, apology, performance, defense, or spiritual lesson. Unedited contact does not mean unfiltered reaction. It does not mean discharging every feeling onto another person. It does not mean abandoning compassion, mindfulness, boundaries, timing, consent, or discernment. It means allowing more of the actual person to participate. Some relationships may become warmer because less management is required. Other relationships may feel thinner when familiar roles, scripts, emotional caretaking, or social performance are no longer doing the work of connection. August may reveal the difference between being known and being continually interpreted. You may feel drawn toward people who can meet what is present without requiring every experience to become immediately clear, productive, resolved, or agreeable. So, in the individual field, you may feel less willing to over explain, anticipate reactions, perform emotional stability, or translate your experience beyond what is needed. In the external field, relationships may offer opportunities for more direct conversation, spontaneous contact, humor, honest difference, and greater recognition of the person who's now present. So, the insight translation for this is truthful contact is not the absence of care, it is care that no longer requires the disappearance of the actual person. So here's a reality check. A simple truthful sentence or light truthful sentence may change the atmosphere of a relationship. Humor may restore contact where prolonged analysis created distance. You may no longer want to explain yourself beyond what is necessary. Directness can remain kind. Not every difference requires agreement or repair. A relationship may feel warmer when both people stop managing the encounter so carefully. Some connections may become less compelling when the familiar roles are removed. Being present may matter more than finding the perfect words. Unedited contact still includes responsibility for how you communicate. A beneficial relationship does not require every part of you to become easily categorized. So here's the theme for theme 3. Here is the example for theme 3. And again, theme 3 is unedited contact. Relationship becomes more immediate and human. Theme 3 example. So let's say a friend asks whether you want to attend a gathering. In the past, you might have spent a long time constructing the response. You don't have the energy to attend, but you're concerned that saying no will disappoint them. You begin offering reasons. You explain everything that's happened during the week. You reassure them that you care. You suggest several future possibilities before knowing whether you have the capacity. You manage their possible reaction before they have even responded. Whereas unedited contact may sound much simpler. Thank you for inviting me. I don't have the capacity for the gathering, but I would enjoy seeing you another time. The sentence is honest, kind. It does not accuse. It does not overexpose. It does not ask the other person to agree that your limit is valid. Your friend may respond warmly. They may feel disappointed. They may ask another question. Unedited contact does not guarantee the response you prefer. It allows you to remain present while another person has their own experience. The relationship becomes more immediate because you are no longer communicating only through the version of yourself designed to prevent every possible discomfort. You're not abandoning care. You've removed the requirement that care must include self erasure. So, here are some reflection questions. Where am I editing myself before contact even begins? What do I assume I must manage for other people? What truthful sentence or what light truthful sentence have I made more complicated than necessary? Sometimes when we get light truth information, sometimes we want to over explain it too. So, which relationships allow more than one perspective to remain present? Where does humor create more connection than analyzing? Who can meet the person I am now rather than the role I once performed? What does direct and responsible communication feel like in my body? So how this theme number 3, unedited contact relationship becomes more immediate and human, how this connects to the overall theme, the living reentry. Life is not entered, only through individual experience. It is also entered through contact. Theme 3 restores relational immediacy. It allows the actual person to become more present within conversations, friendships, family, collaboration, intimacy. So let contact become less managed. Let difference exist without immediate collapse. Let curiosity and grace remain present. Let relationship become a lived encounter rather than an exchange between edited roles. So the takeaway is let connection become a lived encounter rather than a managed exchange. How powerful is that to really think about that in regard to let relationships become a lived encounter rather than exchange between edited roles? I took some time with that. Think about how many experiences you may have had in this lifetime where you've just had exchanges with edited roles. Wow. All right, we're going to move to theme 4. Before that, I'm going to have some water. All right, theme 4. The creative pulse, something wants to move before it has purpose. So the harmonic function is spontaneous expression. August carries a creative pulse. This may appear through writing, speaking, teaching, decorating, cooking, photography, music, movement, gardening, design, storytelling, business ideas, humor, personal style, or the simple impulse to make something without knowing how it will be used. The human system, my friends, may have become accustomed to requiring purpose before allowing creative energy to move. Will this help someone? Will it earn money? Will it fit the brand? Will it become a project? Will it be worth the effort? Can it be completed? Can it be explained? Will this make money? August loosens the demand that expression justify itself in advance. Something may need to be made because making it restores contact between the inner and outer worlds. The creative pulse may arrive quickly. It may also disappear when it immediately is burdened with responsibility and expectation. Give it somewhere to move before assigning it a future. A note recorded on your phone, a change room, an unfinished page, an improvised meal, a class idea, a phrase, a photograph, a color combination, a new way of wearing something, a conversation that awakens another thought. These may carry more life force than polished output produced only through obligation. So let's look at this for the individual field. Creative energy may arrive through fragments, sensory impressions, humor, ideas, body movement, visual preference, language, or a sudden need to rearrange what has become static. The external field may be bringing in new materials or conversations, environments, tools, collaborations, or experiences that may stimulate expression without immediately revealing what the expression will become. I know that can make us really uncomfortable too. Insight translation for this one. Expression may have value before it has utility. So expression may have value before it has utility. The first purpose of creativity may be restoring aliveness to the person creating. So it might be about rejuvenating your life force energy. Isn't that the greatest purpose of all, maybe? You feeling rejuvenated and recalibrated and feeling refreshed. You waking up the next day after doing something creative and just feeling in such joy. That's what this one's about. Here's the reality check on this one. Creativity may emerge in fragments rather than completed visions. Be patient, my friends. Allow yourself to be in the experience. Something playful may later reveal practical value. A new idea may not belong inside an existing structure. Creative energy may withdraw when it is immediately overorganized. That's something to note. That so again, creative energy may withdraw when it is immediately overorganized. An unfinished expression can still complete an energetic movement. Not every creative act belongs to an audience. The pressure to monetize everything can interpret genuine contact. Oh, sorry. The pressure to monetize everything can interrupt genuine contact with the creative current. So the pressure to monetize may actually block your creative current. The body may need experimentation before it knows what form is right. And then rest and sensory nourishment may be part of the creative process. Expression can be meaningful even when no one else sees it, my friends. So just know that. All right. Theme number 4, in terms of the example, when an idea is allowed to be an idea. So let's say you hear a phrase for a class, podcast, episode, story, painting, or creative project, and the phrase has energy. You feel more awake when it arrives. The older response may immediately begin building the entire structure. What would the title be? When would it launch? How would it be marketed? Would people pay for it? How many parts should have it? How will you find time to finish it? Within minutes, the creative pulse becomes another demand. You feel tired before anything has been made. August offers another response. You record the phrase, you write a half page, you speak into your phone for 5 minutes. You don't require the idea to reveal its business model, audience, or final form. A few days later, you may add another thought. The idea may become a class. It may become one paragraph in something else. It may change your understanding without ever becoming public. The creative movement was still real. Its first function may have been to restore contact with your own voice. By not forcing immediate usefulness, you allow the idea enough space to show you what is actually there. Creativity becomes an encounter before it becomes an assignment. I'll say for me, in the last week or so, I usually feel the month's energy forecast like a couple weeks into the current month we're in. And so last week in the Inspiring You Patreon, there's this new section in Patreon called Quips, which it can be for your community, but also it can be for the entire Patreon community. And the idea is they're trying to a little bit make it more like a little like social media-esque in terms of it would be like a Facebook post, if you will, or like a quick Instagram post where you can write something or like a, you know, or like something on like threads or something like that. So I've used the quips here and there, and last week I just felt like I wanted to really write and share things that I was pondering or things that I'm grateful for, and I just went to quips and just started sharing, and it has been so amazing, and I've really enjoyed it. And it really comes back to this theme, like the creative pulse. Something wants to move before it has a purpose. And so it's just a creative pulse where I just wanted to share some things that I felt, something that I had read that had really just inspired me or brought insight on, or something that I was pondering, or something I was grateful on. And I didn't want to just get on and make a video for social media, which I completely can do and I have done and I will do probably, in the future, but I just wasn't feeling that. I wanted to be creative and I wanted to share, but I didn't feel called to doing it on, in terms of some of the other social media apps. And so the quips has just been a great place for it. It's just this great place for me to have this creative pulse. And there's really no expectations on it. It's just I feel really great being able to write and share. And so I realized then that, oh, this is theme 4, the creative pulse. Something wants to move and before it has purpose. So let yourself discover it too, like how it's showing up in your life, and be curious, let yourself be curious about it. So with this then, let's look at the reflection questions because that could really help as well. All right, so the reflection questions on this one, theme 4. What wants to move before I know what it will become? Where do I evaluate expression before allowing it to exist? What form of creativity feels restorative rather than demanding? What would I make, change, write, cook, wear, or explore without an audience? Where has usefulness replaced aliveness? What could remain unfinished without becoming a failure? What environment would allow more of my creative self to participate? So let yourself take some time with this. And then here's how this theme 4 supports living reentry, the overall theme. Creative expression is one way life force crosses the distance between inner experience and physical reality. Theme 4 lets the movement occur before it becomes another responsibility. You don't have to complete you do not need a complete vision. You do not You need enough room for the pulse to move. So you don't need a complete vision. You need enough room for the pulse to move. So let creativity restore contact. Let experimentation become permissible. Let something exist because it carries life. And then the takeaway here is let something move because it is alive, not because it has already proven useful. And that goes back to in terms of the quips that I've been doing. I didn't even know I was like, I don't even know if anybody's going to read these. I don't even know if I don't even know. But it's just something was moving and it was alive and there was creativity to it. And so I allowed myself to go down that road. So let yourself discover what's being called for you. All right. And the final theme is theme number 5, full sensory belonging. The living world becomes inhabitable again. So the harmonic function in this one is earthly reunion. I'm smiling right now because I just looked down at my dog and she is snoozing. She is so happy right now. She just looks so relaxed and peaceful. All right. So theme number 5, full sensory belonging. The lived world becomes inhabitable again. Harmonic function arc, earthly reunion. So the 5th theme of August is this full sensory belonging. Belonging is not presented only as acceptance by a group, approval from another person, or proof that you are in the correct place. It is the experience of being present enough to feel yourself inside your own life. You may recognize belonging through physical and daily contact, the temperature of the air, the sound of your home, the weight of your body in a chair, a familiar street, the face of someone you love. Or in my case, also right now, I just looked at my dog and I was smiling as I looked at her as she's so relaxed and sleeping. Or also, it could be the ritual of making coffee, or maybe going to a coffee shop, fresh sheets, water on the skin, a meal that satisfies you, texture of the clothing, a song that brings you closer to yourself, a tree you pass regularly, the way light moves across a room. August restores meaning to experiences that may have been overlooked because they did not appear significant enough to count. So the physical world may begin holding you again. This does not erase grief, uncertainty, illness, conflict, realities that still require care. It allows life to become multidimensional enough that difficulty is no longer, let me say that again. It allows life to become multidimensional enough that difficulty is no longer the only experience receiving full attention. Really take a moment to take that sentence in. It allows life to become multidimensional enough that difficulty is no longer the only experience receiving full attention. How much of your day is focused on just thinking life is difficult? The human system may remember that belonging can be strengthened through repeated sensory contact with what is already here. So even as I'm sharing this, and I had shared that list about belonging is not presented only as acceptance by a group, approval from another person, or proof that you're in the correct place. It's an experience of being present enough to feel yourself inside your own life. And you may recognize belonging through physical and daily contact. And I mentioned the temperature of the air, the sound of your home, the feeling of street. And as I was sharing this, an incredible just gust of wind came in. And it was just so, it's been so incredibly hot here at times in LA. And I am just having a moment of just like, oh, that air feels so cool and it just feels so delicious. And I so appreciate it. Oh, it just feels so good. It feels so good. And so these are the moments. These are the moments. The human system may remember that belonging can be strengthened through repeated sensory contact with what is already here. And so these moments, taking those moments for gratitude, the air that just came in, just so cold and cool and feels so good. I'm just so grateful. So, what about in your world? Just taking that time. And then for the individual field, how this theme number 5 shows up full sensory belonging, the lived world becomes inhabitable again. The individual field, the senses may become more responsive to texture, sound, temperature, movement, beauty, physical comfort, nourishment, nature, water, environmental fit. The external field, homes, familiar places, routines, landscapes, relationships, and physical objects may begin carrying more emotional meaning as your presence with them increases. So even with the change in the atmosphere in terms of the air coming in and it's cooler. So it's like i- I'm having this response of this emotional meaning with the presence with them increases of like such joy too of how one day can feel so different than the other. And just the appreciation of this present moment life. So here's the insight translation on this. Belonging is not only something granted by others, it can be cultivated through the body's repeated contact with a life it is able to inhabit. You belong to yourself, my friends. So here's the reality check. Beauty may affect you more strongly than expected. Familiar places may feel different as you become more present within them. The body may want simplicity, texture, warmth, sound, water, nature, or physical comfort. Meaning may emerge through repetition rather than novelty. Sensory sensitivity may increase as protective numbing decreases. Comfort does not invalidate grief. Difficulty can remain present without receiving every available channel of attention. Your environment may need to change as more of your present identity inhabits it. Belonging may begin through the body before it becomes a clear emotional conclusion. Daily life is not merely the space between important events. All right, so here is the example for five, which five, again, the theme five is full sensory belonging. The lived world becomes inhabitable again. Here's the example. Let's say you've been moving through a difficult year. Your home has become primarily functional. There are items associated with responsibilities, losses, unfinished projects, or an earlier version of your life. You've stopped noticing the lighting, you eat quickly, you move from room to room completing tasks without feeling fully present within the space. You then begin feeling irritated by one corner of the room. At first, the irritation may seem insignificant, but when you pay attention, you realize the area contains objects that no longer reflect the person living there now. Full sensory belonging does not require an expensive renovation. You remove what no longer belongs. Maybe you move the chair toward the window. Maybe you wash the blanket. Maybe you change the lamp. Maybe you play music while preparing dinner. You sit down to eat rather than standing at the counter. The room has not become perfect. The circumstances that created the difficult year may not be fully resolved, but your body begins receiving different information. There's more light. The fabric feels clean. The music reaches you. The food has taste. You feel yourself sitting inside your own home rather than merely managing it. Belonging becomes physical. It's not dependent upon someone else announcing that you belong. The body begins recognizing, I'm here. The space can reflect me. This day contains experiences I am able to enter. The change in the room is also a change in participation. So here's reflection questions for this theme number 5. Where do I feel most physically present? What textures, sounds, environments, foods, movements, or sensory experiences bring me closer to myself? Does my home reflect the person who lives there now? Where has difficulty become the only vivid experience? What familiar part of life carries more meaning than I've allowed myself to notice? How can belonging become physical rather than only conceptual? What helps the body recognize I am here? So take some time with those questions. And then this is how this theme, number 5, supports the overall theme, living reentry. So living reentry culminates through inhabitation. Theme 5 brings awareness into the physical and sensory world. It allows life to be experienced rather than only managed, interpreted, anticipated, or completed. So, my friends, let the body feel the chair. Let the senses receive the room. Let beauty register. Let nourishment land. Let the physical world become somewhere. Let the physical world become somewhere the present self can belong. I'm going to say that again. Let the physical world become somewhere the present self can belong. And here's the takeaway. Life becomes inhabitable through the moments you allow yourself to fully enter. So with that, my friends, those are the themes. And just to kind of talk about August progression, it's about renewed openness to experience, present tense life, unedited contact, the creative pulse, full sensory belonging. August begins by restoring willingness to move toward experience. Attention moves from continual future anticipation toward present life. Relationship becomes more direct and human. Creative expression begins moving without requiring immediate justification. The month culminates through a fuller inhabitation of physical and sensory life. These movements may not happen in a straight line. An experience may awaken creativity. A truthful conversation may bring you more fully into the present. A sensory moment may restore curiosity. A creative act may make your home more inhabitable. A change in pacing may make relational contact possible. Each doorway supports the other. And so, with that, then, for the midpoint alignment, with that, it's the living reentry. The present begins feeling like somewhere you can live again. So, that at some point will be the midpoint alignment. All right. So, with that, then, we're going to be wrapping up for the public talk. And then I'm going to be going into the dowsing for the all access for the Patreon. But before that, just to kind of give you an overall core August teaching, you don't have to return to the person you were in order to return to life. You are allowed to enter differently, more slowly, more honestly, with stronger discernment, with a changed body, with grief still present, with new preferences, with less tolerance for what removes you from yourself, with greater appreciation for what once seemed too small to matter. August is not measuring how much you can accomplish. It is revealing how much of you is available to experience the life you are already living. Come closer to what carries warmth. Come closer to what has texture. Come closer to what makes the body remember that it is here. Come closer at the pace that allows you to remain with yourself. The light format holds. You are coherent in structural residency, remaining true while reality begins strengthening around your soul signal. So before we say goodbye in the public version, let's just do a closing integration. Let's just do a short little meditation. So let's just take a breath. And as you inhale, I recognize where willingness is already ready, returning. And as you exhale, I release the pressure to force participation before the body's ready. Again, inhale. I bring my attention into the life happening now. And then exhale. I release the habit of living continually ahead of myself. Again, inhale. I welcome direct, responsible, I welcome direct, responsible, and beneficial human connection. I release, exhale, unnecessary management, performance, and over explanation. Again, inhale. I allow creativity to move before it has proven its usefulness. And then exhale. I release the demand that every expression become an obligation. And then again, inhale. I allow my body to feel itself within the physical world. And then exhale. I welcome living reentry in the pacing that is right for me for the highest good. All right, let's just take a moment. Let yourself follow your breath in, follow your breath out. All right, bring awareness behind your eyes. If they were closed, open your eyes. Welcome back, my friends. All right, so for those listening to the public version, thank you. Thank you for being here and receiving the August 2026 energy forecast. And for those staying for the dowsing energy healing session, we're going to be moving into that in a minute for the August 2026 crystalline Reiki and dowsing energy session. And again, that's available for the all access members. And if you wish to join us, the link is either in the bio or it'll be in the show notes. And this crystalline Reiki and dowsing energy session is going to support renewed openness to experience, present tense life, unedited contact, the creative pulse, full sensory belonging, and the release of non better patterns that keep the human system at a protective distance from experience, living continually ahead of the present, over managing relationships, suppressing expression until it becomes useful, or remaining disconnected from the physical life it has already been living. So, with that, my friends, I'm going to do a crystalline Reiki blessing for the public version. Here it is. My friends, may your human system recognize where willingness is already returning. May interest become information without becoming pressure. May your attention become more available to the life happening now. May pacing protect your ability to remain present. May contact become more direct, responsible, and human. May creativity move before it is burdened with purpose. May your senses receive the life that is already here. May grief and aliveness be allowed to coexist. May the world around you become inhabitable. May you enter life as the person you are now. And with that, my friends, for the public version, we are complete for now. Much, much love. Until soon, stay in